Pick up another call in the parking lot to sign. Are you with me? When I stand with the roof gone, I pull up like Jimmy Neutron. Looking like you get a new fun. Like you haul and I know you like to go slow, but we could go faster. Maybe the best.
Hey everybody. Hold on, give me a minute. I'm sorry I am late. I done changed the time so many times. Baby, traffic is hell. Welcome in. It is Sunday and child, honey. Welcome in. Hold on, wait a minute. So we're gonna talk about Gabriel Fernandez. Let me see. Let me go to video. Okay. So they had let me see. As you guys remember, Gabriel Fernandez was tortured and starved as a child and he passed away. I'm going to play a couple of documentaries. Let me see who orchestrated this one up top. Hold on, y'all. I apologize. I think we're going to do this one. Yeah. And if I can't, we'll go to the other ones, okay? Hello. Yeah, it was sad. I'll play some of it, but I'm not going to play all of it.
Appellate and habeas rights as part of the plea agreement. The court ultimately finding that the defendant's plea and waiver of all of their constitutional and statutory rights were made knowingly, willingly, voluntarily, and intelligently, and further that she understood all of the consequences of her plea. Moreover, the record reflects that the defendant confirmed that she was intellectually capable of entering and understanding her plea agreement. Accordingly, it is the judgment and sentence of this court that the defendant shall be sentenced to a term of life in prison without the possibility of parole for the underlying murder charge, coupled with the special torture special circumstance allegation.
This all went down back in 2013 in Palmdale, California.
Yeah, it is horrible.
We see a young boy facing.
They did make a documentary about it, and what's so sad is when they found this baby, y'all. It was bad. He was very small. On top of that, he was like the way he was very small, badly beaten, y'all. It was bad. I'm trying to think what else. It was a lot. It was bad. And I'll never forget, it was so sad, y'all. It was so sad. Yeah, the teachers, parents, and everybody, they called CPS. This is why California had that new law when CPS is called. Because CPS was called to their home multiple times and they did not remove him. That's when they started coming in. And that's the same thing. It was like one of them stories in the 80s in Atlanta. The reason why they have these new laws when it comes to CPS and stuff, because I'll never forget in Atlanta, I heard about the little boy that stayed with his grandma, his mama. He got badly beaten and he passed away. They didn't find out till months later. Yeah, they saw his appearance at school, didn't report it or nothing. Happy Sunday. They didn't nothing.
Ongoing mistreatment that led to his tragic death, with multiple reports of warning signs ignored along the way, and a system that failed to step in despite clear red flags. The real outrage here is how the Child Protection Services and authorities.
And if they were going to pull that card, no shade, they could have pulled that card to save this little boy life. They be in everybody else's business, but couldn't save this baby life. Crazy.
These dropped the ball, letting the situation spiral out of control, even after alerts from teachers and family. How could something like this slip through the cracks for so long? This is the case of Gabriel Fernandez. The broken family. Gabriel Daniel Fernandez was born on February 20, 2005 in Palmdale,
after seeing
California.
him now,
His mother, Pearl Cynthia Fernandez, was just 21 at the time, born herself on August 20.
Now listen, let me tell y'all something. The tea that I got on her, what she going through, we gonna watch it after this. We going to TikTok after this. Baby, when I tell you they is annihilating Pearl in that goddamn prison, baby.
29th, 1983, to Robert and Sandra Fernandez. Pearl's early life set a pattern of hardship that rippled through the family. Growing up in a household where her father, Robert, spent much of his time behind bars on various charges, Pearl described a childhood filled with neglect from her mother, Sandra, who she claimed was harsh and inattentive. By age 9, Pearl had started experimenting with controlled substances that became a crutch amid the chaos. At 11, she ran away from home, escaping what she saw as an unbearable environment. School didn't last long for her either. She dropped out in the 8th grade, cutting short any formal education and leaving her to navigate adolescence without much structure. Pearl's teenage years brought even more turmoil. She faced traumatic experiences that shaped her deeply, including an alleged attempt by her uncle to assault when she was young. Later, as a teen, she endured a harrowing ordeal where a group of men held her hostage and assaulted her repeatedly over several days, an event that pushed her toward thoughts of ending her own life. These incidents left lasting scars, contributing to a series of mental health challenges that were diagnosed later. In 2011, for instance, a cognitive assessment revealed that her verbal comprehension skills were equivalent to those of a typical second-grade student, pointing to developmental delays. Doctors also identified depressive disorder, a possible personality disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, and other issues tied to her past. Despite all this, Pearl entered into a relationship with Arnold Contreras, Gabriel's father, and together they had 4 children, building a family amid ongoing struggles. Arnold Contreras, Gabriel's biological father, had his own history intertwined with crime and incarceration. Involved in substances-related offenses and even armed robbery at points, Arnold spent time in prison, which meant he wasn't consistently present during the early years of his children's lives. His relationship with Pearl was rocky from the start, marked by arguments and separations. At one point, Pearl faced pending charges for threatening to stab Arnold during a heated dispute, highlighting the volatile dynamics between them. The couple's 4 kids included Gabriel as the second child, with an older brother named Ezekiel, who was around 8 years older, born roughly in 1997, and a younger sister, Virginia, about 3 years younger than Gabriel, born around 2002. There was also another sibling, completing the quartet, though details on that child's exact placement in the timeline remain sparse in the records we've pulled. The family operated in a lower socioeconomic bracket, living in Palmdale, a working-class suburb north of Los Angeles known for its affordable housing, but also for pockets of poverty and limited opportunities. Jobs were unsteady, and the household relied on whatever income came in, often supplemented by government assistance programs that became a point of contention later on. Right after Gabriel's birth, Pearl left him at the hospital for 3 days, essentially relinquishing immediate care, before arrangements were made for him to go elsewhere. Instead of staying with his parents, Gabriel was placed with his great-uncle, Michael Lemos Carranza, and Michael's partner, David Martinez. This setup provided a stable home for the infant.
When he was with his uncles, he was so much better. That boy looked healthy, he was loved, and she felt some type of way.
Far from the immediate conflicts in Pearl and Arnold's lives. Michael, part of the extended Fernandez family, took on the role willingly, creating what seemed like a nurturing environment in their household. For the first 4 years of his life, Gabriel lived there, away from the direct influence of his mother's turbulent history and his father's legal troubles. But family tensions simmered beneath the surface, particularly around Michael's relationship with David. In 2009, when Gabriel was 4, a major shift occurred due to underlying family conflicts. His grandfather, Robert Fernandez, disapproved strongly of Michael and David's same-sex relationship, viewing it through a lens of traditional values that clashed with the couple's lifestyle. This disapproval led to Gabriel being moved out of their care and into the home of his grandparents, Robert and Sandra, in Palmdale. The transition wasn't just about logistics, it reflected deeper rifts within the family, where generational differences and personal beliefs created divides. Robert, with his own history of incarceration, and Sandra, who Pearl had accused of neglect in
Yep,
her own
the uncle
upbringing,
was which was better.
now
Yep,
stepped in as primary caregivers.
he was
Their
way
home
better.
became Gabriel's base for the next.
The thing with the uncle treated Gabriel way better. Gabriel went to school clean, nice haircut, fed. He wasn't mistreated anyway. And it's so sad the uncle was hurt because he was like, he didn't understand like why he couldn't keep him because he knew Pearl wasn't gonna do right by him. And he loved that little boy.
Few years, offering a different kind of stability amid the broader family dysfunction. We see here how these interpersonal clashes, rooted in homophobia, past grievances, and differing views on family, dictated the boy's early movements, bouncing him between relatives. Pearl's extended family added layers to these dynamics. Her aunt, Elizabeth Carranza, and Elizabeth's partner, offered contrasting perspectives on Pearl's behavior in relationships. They claimed that Pearl was often the controlling, aggressive one in her partnerships, pushing back against any narratives where she positioned herself solely as a victim. This aunt-niece relationship highlighted ongoing family disputes, where allegations flew back and forth, eroding trust. Meanwhile, Arnold's absences due to his criminal record meant he played a minimal role in day-to-day decisions, leaving gaps
Over
that
children,
relatives like Michael
did.
and the grandparents filled. The overall family structure.
If I'm not mistaken, I don't think his daddy saw him like that either. Cause she was trying to keep him from his daddy too when she got with that man that she was with during the time of this. That wasn't his daddy. And his daddy didn't hear nothing about him either. That's messed up.
Was fragmented, with siblings like Ezyme and Virginia experiencing their own versions of this instability, though they remained more directly under Pearl's influence at times. By September 2012, another change loomed. Pearl, now living with her boyfriend Isaro Agrier, born on June 13, 1980, decided to bring Gabriel back into her household in Palmdale. Isaro, who worked as a security guard, entered the picture as a stepfather figure, altering the family composition once more. The motivation for this reunion included practical elements, such as qualifying for welfare benefits that came with having more children in the home. But it also stirred concerns among other family members, who recalled Pearl's track record with her kids. The household they formed was modest, squeezed into an apartment in a neighborhood where economic pressures were evident, high unemployment rates, reliance on public aid, and the daily grind of making ends meet. Conflicts didn't vanish. If anything, bringing Gabriel and amplified.
But see, he would try to, send stuff like letters or whatever. And I remember he wanted to fight that man. They had to have extra. I'll never forget. I think he was trying to fight old boy. I think he was trying to fight him. Good afternoon. He was pissed. I wouldn't be surprised if he went back to jail or while they in prison, in the same prison, he tearing that man up. I wouldn't be surprised.
Existing tensions, from Pearl's unresolved issues with Arnold to the broader family's skepticism about her parenting capabilities. Diving deeper, we note how socioeconomic factors wove through every aspect. Palmdale, part of the Antelope Valley, attracted families like the Fernandezes seeking cheaper living compared to Los Angeles proper. But it came with trade-offs, limited access to quality education, healthcare, and jobs. Pearl's lack of education and mental health struggles compounded this, making steady employment elusive. Arnold's criminal history similarly barred him from many opportunities, perpetuating a cycle of poverty. Family gatherings, when they happened, devolved into arguments over money, child rearing, or old wounds from Pearl's childhood. For instance, her runaway episode at 11 wasn't just a one-off. It stemmed from a home environment she described as toxic, with her mother's alleged ingots clashing against her father's absences. These stories circulated among relatives, fueling ongoing debates about responsibility and blame. For how everything went wrong, it's needed to make clear that we got clear warning signs in Gabriel's situation that went unnoticed or unheeded, really highlighting the missed opportunities that could have changed everything. From as early as 2005, when Gabriel was just a baby, there were suspicions of mistreatment floating around in the family circle. Relatives like his grandparents and uncle started noticing odd behaviors and physical marks that didn't add up, raising red flags about how he was being handled at home. These initial concerns weren't isolated. They built up over time, but somehow, they didn't trigger the kind of response that might have pulled him out of harm's way right then. Fast forward to late 2012 and early 2013, and the signs became even more glaring at school, where Gabriel spent a good chunk of his day. His teacher, Jennifer Garcia, at Summerwind Elementary in Palmdale, was one of the first outsiders to spot the troubling indicators. She observed bruises and cuts scattered across his face and body, marks that appeared fresh and unexplained. These weren't just random scrapes from play. They were patterned in ways that suggested something systematic was going on. Gabriel's nose would bleed without an obvious cause, his lips swollen like he'd taken a hit, and there were burn marks resembling something hot dotted on his skin. His hair looked like patches had been yanked out, leaving bald spots that he tried to hide. On top of that, he showed clear signs of being undernourished, thin frame, lack of energy, slower growth than his peers, which science tells us points to chronic neglect in providing basic needs like food. Experts in child health explain that such malnutrition leads to delayed physical development, weakened immune systems, and compromise.
Let me tell you what pissed that y'all couldn't sit here and get him out there bladed care. As many times they like to be in folks' business. That's the thing that pissed me off.
Over time. Jennifer noted these repeatedly, but the reports she filed didn't lead.
She the only one that did. The rest of them didn't want to do it.
Lead to immediate action from the authorities, missing a critical window where school officials and social services could have collaborated to get him medical checks or temporary placement. The blame shifts to the Department of Children and Family Services caseworkers, who reviewed these alerts, but deemed them insufficient for escalation, overlooking how these physical manifestations screamed for urgent intervention. Gabriel's behavior at school added another layer to these warning signs, painting a picture of a kid in deep emotional turmoil. He often did frightened, jumping at sudden noises or avoiding eye contact with adults, which psychologists link to ongoing trauma responses. Kids in such states tend to withdraw socially, showing anxiety or even bursts of aggression, as a way to cope with internal chaos caused by repeated negative experiences. In Gabriel's case, he would sometimes harm himself, which research in child psychology attributes to internalized mistreatment, where the child...
When I heard this, I said, how could she do such a thing? And everybody said that they failed him, and they did. Even a CPS worker said, we just failed him. Y'all failed that little boy. That boy was in a cabinet. And when they showed the cabinet, I was like, oh, heck, what? The way she had him in that, what? She did not care. She let all the other kids. But when it came to him, she had an issue. That's sad.
Mimics or redirects pain as a maladaptive behavior stemming from emotional or physical distress. Studies show that self-harm in young children often emerges from environments where they feel powerless, leading to disorders like oppositional fight behavior or even early signs of PTSD. He also dressed in long sleeves and pants even on scorching Palmdale days, a classic attempt to conceal injuries, as experts note that children will go to great lengths to hide marks if they're afraid of repercussions or further harm. This clothing choice, mismatched with the weather, is a scientifically recognized red flag for efforts to cover up physical evidence of mistreatment. Jennifer Garcia heard that his mother and her boyfriend used objects like baseball bats or belts, details he shared in moments of vulnerability. But his stories sometimes shifted due to fear, a common phenomenon where kids alter narratives to protect themselves or their caregivers. Child development specialists explain that such inconsistent retellings aren't lies but survival mechanisms, proving the depth of the psychological impact. These behavioral cues were reported multiple times, yet social workers like Stephanie Rodriguez and Patricia Clement, assigned to his case, didn't pursue in-depth evaluations or home removals, squandering opportunities to connect him with therapists or safe havens that could have halted the progression. Shockingly, family members outside the immediate household also caught wind of these issues, adding eyewitness accounts that could have bolstered interventions. His grandparents, Robert and Sandra, noticed unusual marks and behaviors during visits, like how Gabriel seemed hesitant to go home, or flinched at raised voices. His uncle, Michael Limos, who had cared for him earlier, picked up on changes in his demeanor, more subdued, less playful, when they interacted. These relatives voiced concerns over the years, starting from those early 2005 suspicions, when Gabriel was tiny and showing unexplained fussiness or minor marks that didn't align with normal baby handling. Science on infant development highlights how even subtle signs, like excessive crying or avoidance of touch, can signal early mistreatment, leading to attachment disorders if unaddressed. Yet, these family reports to authorities went without rigorous follow-up, allowing the situation to fester. The responsibility lies with the social services supervisors who oversaw the case files, but didn't cross-reference these familial insights with school reports, bypassing chances for family court involvement or emergency placements that might have relocated Gabriel back to safer relatives. The last day. For the pivotal day in the case, May 22, 2013, in the family's home in Palmdale, California, around 10:45 p.m., when Pearl Fernandez picked up the phone and dialed 911, her voice steady as she reported that her son Gabriel wasn't breathing after what she described as a simple accident, falling from his bed and hitting his head.
911 emergency.
Yes, I would like to, my son is not breathing.
Your son is what?
He's not breathing.
Hold on 1 second. I'm going to transfer you over to the fire department. Don't hang up.
My son is 8 years old.
It's your son, okay. And he's not breathing?
No.
Does he have a seizure?
No, he was wrestling with my other son, and I came there and he just was unconscious.
Okay, do you have the paramedics on the way right now? Are you right there with him?
Yes, I'm there.
Okay, do you know how to do CPR?
I'm doing the compulsions on the chest, and
Okay,
and
you
I
need
sit
to
there.
brace for him. If he's not breathing, you need to do 2 breaths and 30 compressions.
In the audio from that call, which we've reviewed in our research, Pearl sounded composed, laying out the details like it was just an everyday mishap, without the kind of frantic urgency you'd expect from a parent in a life or death situation. She mentioned trying to wake him but getting no response, sticking firmly to the narrative of an unintentional tumble. This calm demeanor raised early questions for us as we dig into the records, because it contrasted sharply with the gravity of what responders would soon discover, hinting at a possible effort to downplay the incident from the get-go. Minutes after the call, firefighters and paramedics from the local emergency services rushed to the scene, arriving to find Gabriel unconscious on the floor, not responding to any attempts to rouse him. The team worked quickly to stabilize him, noting right away that his condition seemed more complicated than a straightforward fall, though they focused on immediate life-saving measures like checking airways and starting CPR. Pearl was there, reiterating her story to the responders, maintaining that composed front as they loaded Gabriel into the ambulance. Izaro Agur, her boyfriend who lived with them, was also present at the house during this chaos, backing up Pearl's account without hesitation. He described the supposed accident in similar terms, showing no outward signs of guilt or distress beyond what might pass for concern in the moment. Perhaps a calculated move to align their stories, as we see in many true crime breakdowns where perpetrators try to control the initial narrative. His cooperation at the scene didn't waver, but it would soon face scrutiny as more details emerged. From the home, Gabriel was rushed to nearby Antelope Valley Hospital for initial treatment, where doctors and nurses sprang into action to assess his state. Upon examination, the medical staff quickly picked up on discrepancies that didn't add up. The boy's physical condition showed signs that suggested repeated issues over time, not just a one-off bump from a bed. One nurse later recalled in statements how the marks and overall presentation raised immediate red flags, prompting them to question the parents' explanation. Pearl, waiting at the hospital, continued to push the accident story, appearing unruffled even as staff pressed for more details, which only amplified the growing suspicion among the team. Isaro arrived shortly after, echoing the same tale, but his responses to basic questions about the evening's events started to show minor inconsistencies, like vague timelines that didn't fully sync with Pearl's version. We note in the reports how this hospital phase became a turning point, with the medical professionals' trained eyes spotting patterns that a layperson might miss, leading them to alert authorities without delay.
Yeah, they want to
The
pay
mismatch
attention.
between the claimed accident and Gabriel's actual presentation became impossible to.
I'm going to tell y'all why they paid attention. Doctors already know that every time a child go to the doctor with bruises, they have to call CPS. She wasn't taking him to doctors and any of that, but he had bruises. One thing with them, if they don't report it, they lose their license. And what they not gonna have is them not reporting this, because they're going to keep their license.
Ignore for the doctors. They documented how a simple fall couldn't account for the array of indicators on his body. Things like older bruises in various healing stages and other unexplained marks that pointed to something.
They had to report this. And even the doctor said that when they examined him, they found stuff that he was badly bruised. He was small. You could tell he hasn't eaten. And by her putting her hands and hitting him in the head or whatever she did, he was already clinging to life. He was thirsty. He was hungry. He was starving. Yeah.
Ongoing.
If she would have brought him to the hospital herself, if somebody would have just took him to the hospital, that little boy would have never been in her care.
Rather than acute. Pediatric specialists emphasize in general literature that injuries from genuine accidents tend to be isolated and match the described mechanism, like a single impact site with fresh swelling, whereas recurring or mismatched signs often signal deeper problems. Here, the boy's symptoms, labored breathing, unresponsiveness, coupled with those visible inconsistencies, clashed.
Because if anybody saw it and they knew it, if they would have just got him and took him to that hospital, she would be in jail, he would be in jail, and all them kids would be removed.
Directly with the parents' straightforward fall narrative, fueling doubts that this was accidental. The staff didn't hesitate. One doctor made the call to involve Child Protective Services and law enforcement right then, recognizing the protocol for such red flags. Pearl's reaction to these probing questions shifted slightly. She became defensive, insisting it was just a mishap and that Gabriel was clumsy, but her lack of visible panic stood out, almost as if she was rehearsing a script. Asaro, meanwhile, tried to deflect by focusing on unrelated details, like what Gabriel had eaten that day, which only heightened the medical team's unease. Deciding that Antelope Valley's facilities weren't equipped for the level of care needed, the doctors arranged for Gabriel's transfer to Children's Hospital Los Angeles, a specialized pediatric center better suited for complex cases. During the transport, paramedics monitored him closely, noting no improvement in his condition, which further underscored the severity that a mere bed fall shouldn't cause. Meanwhile, deputies from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department were already en route. Summoned by the hospital alerts, they split their efforts between securing the home scene in Palmdale and interviewing at the hospital, methodically piecing together the timeline. At the house, investigators photographed the layout, noting the bed in question and searching for any evidence that might support or refute the false story, things like the height of the bed or signs of struggle that didn't fit. Back at the hospital, they spoke first with the medical personnel, who laid out the inconsistencies in detail, stressing how the boy's overall state suggested prolonged issues rather than an isolated event. One deputy recalled the palpable tension as Pearl was confronted with these observations. She stuck to her guns, repeating the fall narrative with a flat effect, denying any prior problems and showing frustration at the doubts, which only made her seem less credible. Izaro, questioned separately, cooperated at first by answering basics, but faltered when pressed on the exact sequence, his story wavering just enough to mirror the medical mismatches, like claiming no unusual behavior from Gabriel earlier that day despite evident signs otherwise. The siblings' reactions added another dimension to the unfolding discovery. Ezekiel, the older brother around 16 at the time, appeared subdued initially, avoiding eye contact with deputies as if weighing his words carefully. Virginia, younger at about 11, clutched her brother's arm. Her clutched her volumes until gentle prompting from a social worker elicited responses that hinted at a different reality. Mentions of Gabriel.
Yeah, he was still in school. Oh, they done got so big. Look at them. I know they glad. They glad to be away. I know they miss their brother so much, and I know they glad to be away from her.
Being hurt before, that clashed with the one-time accident tale. These kids' hesitancy, common in such high-stress scenarios, reflected the family dynamics at play, but their eventual disclosures provided crucial contrasts to the parents' unified front. Family relatives like the grandparents Robert and Sandra and Uncle Michael were notified soon after the hospital admission, their responses a mix of shock and immediate skepticism toward the accident explanation. Robert, in particular, expressed outright doubt over the phone to investigators, recalling past concerns that made the fall story ring hollow. His voice laced anger and disbelief as he demanded answers. As the night wore on into May 23, the investigative momentum built rapidly. Deputies coordinated with hospital staff to document everything, from photos of Gabriel's condition to statements from everyone present. The overarching conflict, the simple fall versus the complex presentation, drove the quick escalation, with forensics experts later noting in general terms how such mismatches often accelerate suspicions in child cases. Pearl's arrest came that morning at the hospital on suspicion of endangering a child, a direct result of those glaring inconsistencies. When cuffed, she maintained her composure, protesting innocence and clinging to the accident line. Even as deputies read her rights, her denial firm but undercut by the mounting evidence from medical reports. Isaro's arrest followed suit the same day, charged with attempted murder, based on the intent inferred from the discrepancies. He went along without resistance at first, but his cooperation cracked under questioning, with answers that didn't square with the physical findings, like minimizing any role in the evening's events despite being home. Throughout this rapid sequence, the medical team's proactive stance stood out. They didn't wait, filing reports instantly to law enforcement about the non-matching narrative and condition, a move that experts praise as following best practices to protect vulnerable kids. Their detailed notes highlighted how a fall wouldn't explain the layered indicators, pushing the case from medical emergency to criminal probe in hours. Relatives' reactions amplified the divide. The grandparents arrived at the hospital distraught, their shock turning to pointed questions about what really happened, voicing long-held worries that made the accident claims seem implausible. Uncle Michael's response, upon hearing, was one of quiet fury, aligning with family history that cast doubt on Pearl's version from the start. We see in these moments.
That's true. She cannot have, that's true. She can't talk to them kids. I don't even think if they come adults, she can talk to them kids. Like her having a contact with her children, her being their mother is over. It's done for. It's done.
How the collective reactions, from calm parents to skeptical kin and vigilant medics, exposed the fractures in the story, leading to those swift arrests before the full picture even emerged. The siblings, shuffled to safety amid the arrests, began opening up more, their words adding fuel to the investigative fire, though their initial silence spoke to the fear that had kept things hidden. This chain of events, from that late-night call to the handcuffs clicking shut, underscores the pivotal role of those first responders in unraveling a facade that had held for too long. The testimony. We're piecing together the post-arrest phase of the investigation for this case on the channel, kicking off right after Pearl Fernandez and Isaro Aguirre were taken into custody on May 23, 2013, with detectives from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department launching initial interrogations at the hospital and then at the station. Pearl stuck to her story during those first sessions, insisting that Gabriel's injuries stemmed from an accidental fall off the bed, flat out denying any other involvement or prior issues, her demeanor steady as she repeated the details without much deviation. We see in the reports how this narrative aimed to frame everything as a tragic mishap, but it quickly ran into roadblocks when cross-referenced with emerging evidence. Isaro, on the other hand, started out cooperative, claiming Gabriel had a habit of self-inflicted harm and pointing to a supposed bike accident from days earlier as the cause of some marks, though his account clashed head-on with the medical findings that suggested a different timeline and origin. Detectives noted these inconsistencies early, using them to probe deeper, but Isaro held his ground initially, perhaps buying time as the probe expanded. From there, the team shifted to gathering physical evidence at the family apartment in Palmdale, conducting a thorough search that turned up items like bloodstains in key areas, holes in the walls.
I think that was a problem. Then they had a problem because he had a partner, but if they would have let him keep raising him, Gabriel would still be here. He probably would have took on the other kids. They would have been fine. They would have never been left with trauma. He would have never been, abused and all of that. You know what I'm saying?
Consistent with BB gun use, and a wooden bat with traces linked back to Gabriel. This sweep wasn't just routine, it provided tangible links that contradicted the accident claims, helping build a foundation for the case as investigators cataloged everything meticulously for later analysis. We can trace how these discoveries fed directly into follow-up questions, turning the focus toward corroborating witnesses who could fill in the gaps. Among the most pivotal were the statements from Gabriel's siblings, starting with his older brother Ezekiel, who gave detailed testimony about the household dynamics leading up to that final day. Ezekiel recounted specific events, including how Gabriel was made to consume inappropriate items and described instances where he was struck.
I apologize. He heard something, and so he wanted to go see what it was. Yeah, she blamed him for everything. She blamed the boyfriend for everything. Everything she blamed him for. She had no accountability for nothing she did to that boy. And the same for the boyfriend.
With objects such as a baseball bat, a metal buckled belt, a coat hanger, and a wooden stick. He also spoke of his brother had accident with a BB gun in sensitive areas labeled with derogatory terms like gay. Forced into girthing as punishment and confined in a locked cabinet, Ezekiel pinpointed the critical moment on May 23, 2013, when Gabriel failed to clean up toys, leading to a confrontation where he screamed before going silent, a sequence that aligned with the timeline of the emergency call.
So she had an issue with her brother. And the new guy had an issue with the brother because her brother is gay. That's Gabriel's uncle. And I don't think, first of all, Pearl, if it wasn't for your goddamn brother, your child would have been in foster care. You would have had a harder time getting that little boy out of the foster care system. But you weren't about him turning what? Really? So what? I don't think he would have been gay. He's a young boy. You weren't about him being gay. That's very sad. She should have been asking that man. Let me shut up. Well, guess what? I guess I'ma just say it. I guess the boyfriend gonna be somebody's girlfriend.
This testimony wasn't easy, Ezekiel admitted to initial hesitation, shaped by the environment at home. Gabriel's younger sister Virginia, 11 years old then, backed up much of this in her own interview, confirming patterns like repeated punches from a Guer, Pearl breaking Gabriel's front teeth, more BB gun incidents, handcuffing inside the cabinet,
Right.
the girls' clothing episodes,
Exactly.
and witnessing the decisive blow where a Guer punched Gabriel down, leaving him unresponsive before he was placed under a shower stream prior to authorities being contacted. Virginia's account added layers, showing how the siblings observed these routines firsthand, and her details meshed with Ezekiel's to create a cohesive picture for investigators. Both kids revealed how Pearl had coached them on what to say to social workers and police about any visible marks, instructing them to lie and attribute everything to accidents or self-harm. With Ezekiel confessing he complied out of fear of similar treatment. This element of directed deception became a key thread, illustrating attempts to cover tracks over months, and detectives used it to unravel earlier reports that had been dismissed. Photographic evidence from the home search played a supporting role too, with shots of the bedroom revealing 2 beds, but indications that Gabriel often slept in a box, like setup most of the time, which raised questions about daily living conditions and contradicted any image.
So it sounds like the children were being abused by Pearl as well and the boyfriend. So everybody, including Gabriel, was being abused by Pearl and the boyfriend. They weren't supposed to tell nobody any marks, any bruises they have. They don't talk about it. Don't you tell nobody I abuse. She basically was doing it to all her kids. Sad.
Of a normal household. These images weren't just snapshots. they helped visualize the statements from the siblings, providing context that strengthened the overall narrative emerging from the interrogations. We note how the team cross-referenced these with hospital records, building a timeline that exposed gaps in the parents' initial stories. Another angle came from the child counselor involved earlier, who testified about discovering a note from Gabriel and calling 911. Though the complaint was dismissed for lacking a specific plan, a missed signal that later tied into the broader investigation. Diving deeper into that note, which stands out as one of the most heartbreaking details in the records. It was a letter written by Gabriel himself, handed over by Pearl to a social worker during a home visit about a month before the final incident, right in the tail end of ongoing checks. The content was raw, with Gabriel expressing affection toward his mother in phrases like, "I love you so much, I'll kill myself."
What?
And, "I'll love you until you die."
Oh.
Words that on the surface seemed like a child's devotion, but carried heavier undertones when examined. Investigators learned through testimony that Pearl and Isoro had forced Gabriel to pen this, aiming to shift blame onto him for any self-harm tendencies, tied to incidents where he played with dolls and faced ridicule with terms like gay. This coercion wasn't isolated. It fit a pattern of manipulating perceptions, and Pearl's decision to submit the letter was strategic. She presented it as proof of Gabriel's love for her, while implying he had mental health issues, deflecting from any mistreatment at home. The social worker who received it knew of its existence, but didn't escalate the report promptly, a lapse that later became part of the scrutiny on oversight, with the letter entering court files as evidence linked to charges against those workers for child mistreatment and falsifying records. The counselor's involvement added weight. Upon finding the note, they dialed emergency services, but the response fell short due to the absence of concrete details, leaving it as another overlooked piece until the full probe brought it to light. As the statements piled up, detectives looped in medical personnel for corroboration, pulling testimony from the firefighter James Cermak, who described Gabriel's body showing marks on every inch, details that directly challenged the accident narrative. Forensic pathologist James Kemp Ribe weighed in too, ruling the cause as blunt force trauma combined with child neglect, remarking he'd never seen so many skin injuries on a kid, which underscored the extent without dwelling on specifics. Law enforcement officers like Ronald McCarthy contributed by recalling interrogations where Isoro attributed widespread bruising to Gabriel's anger-fueled self-harm or a bike mishap, claims that didn't hold up. Erica Martinez, another deputy, observed Gabriel with extensive bruising, lumps, cuts, swollen shut eyes, a neck brace, and small objects under the skin, noting no family member rode in the ambulance with him, a detail that hinted at detachment. Teacher Jennifer Garcia's input bridged back to earlier signs, reporting her calls to social services after incidents like Gabriel arriving with a bleeding lip from a belt buckle, black eyes, bruises, and even demonstrating cocaine snorting motions, which she flagged as concerning. Detective Timothy O'Quinn highlighted how prior abuse investigators failed to fully undress Gabriel for checks, missing opportunities to spot issues. For more details about the mother's role in this situation, focusing on her own childhood mistreatment and how it led to similar circumstances for her child. Pearl Fernandez's early years were marked by a series of traumatic events that shaped her path. Pearl bore direct responsibility for the mistreatment that led to Gabriel's death, actively participating in the neglect and harm that culminated in her life sentence without parole. She failed to prioritize her son's safety, rejecting offers of intervention from social agencies and concealing warning signs by attributing them to accidents or Gabriel's own self-harm tendencies. Even with diagnoses of psychological disorders and developmental disabilities that impacted her behavior control, Pearl was held fully criminally accountable due to her active involvement in the mistreatment, as courts determined her conditions didn't absolve her actions. The cycle of mistreatment stands out here, with Pearl's history of being mistreated as a child contributing to heightened risk assessments by child protection
I believe it. I truly believe it. I believe it.
Agencies, ultimately leading her to recreate a similar harmful setting for Gabriel. This wasn't a break from the past. Instead, her behaviors toward him mirrored intergenerational patterns, where she perpetuated the neglect and harm rather than interrupting the loop. We see this in how she maintained the household dynamics that echoed her own upbringing, passing on the unresolved issues without seeking change. Science sheds light on why this happens. showing that individuals mistreated in childhood face a higher risk of mistreating their own kids through learned behaviors and trauma responses that impair parenting skills and emotional regulation. Research highlights how childhood trauma can trigger disorders like PTSD and depression, boosting the likelihood of repeating mistreatment via environmental and psychological mechanisms, as outlined in studies on child mistreatment dynamics. These cycles often tie into factors like poverty and welfare challenges. But the core driver remains unaddressed trauma that weakens its ability to safeguard their children. Programs like structured decision making incorporate a parent's mistreatment history as a key risk factor, grounded in evidence that early trauma elevates the chances of inflicting harm on the next generation. Broader studies on child mistreatment reveal increased mortality rates and long-term health issues, with the cycle persisting through modeled behaviors and a lack of psychological support to break free. In Pearl's case, this scientific framework helps explain the repetition without excusing it, as her choices directly shaped the tragic outcome despite available red flags. We note how experts emphasize that breaking these cycles requires early intervention, therapy, and support systems, yet when those fail, the responsibility falls squarely on the adult to seek help rather than continue the pattern. Pearl's refusal to engage meaningfully with resources amplified the risks, aligning with data showing that unresolved parental trauma often leads to escalated household dangers for kids. This interplay of personal history and decision-making underscores the preventable nature of such tragedies, where science points to pathways that went unused here. Overall, the discussion around Pearl's role reveals a stark example of intergenerational mistreatment, where her past experiences didn't mitigate her culpability, but instead fueled the environment that harmed Gabriel. Scientific explanations reinforce that while trauma can predispose someone to these behaviors, accountability remains, especially when opportunities for intervention are dismissed. We pull from various studies to highlight how mistreatment's ripple effects demand systemic awareness to halt the repetition in families like this one. The ignorance. Digging deeper into the criticisms aimed at the agencies for their oversights in handling this situation for the channel, we need to focus on how those lapses drew widespread backlash and where the blame should land. The Department of Children and Family Services came under heavy fire for systemic failures in safeguarding Gabriel, with many pointing out that his preventable death stemmed from inadequate risk assessments and a lack of decisive action when red flags appeared. This echoed in public outcry, where experts argued that the agency's protocols fell short, allowing the mistreatment to continue unchecked despite opportunities to.
Man, when I heard about this, I said, if me and my homies would have lived there, we would have jumped her ass. I would have jumped her and his fat ass, and then we would have took the little baby. Call the police. I don't care. Hell nah, that ain't right. They ain't do their goddamn job.
To intervene. This wasn't just isolated commentary. It sparked internal probes within.
Listen, it's so much stuff out there. Free DNA tests. All types of good stuff out there. All types of stuff out there, baby. The look on that man's face, he wanted to. He told that judge if he had the chance to tear him up, he would. He wanted him. He wanted that man so bad when he heard about that, what they did to his child. That man wanted them so bad. He told him he'll see him in there.
Highlighting how the department's handling of cases like this one exposed deep-rooted issues in their operational framework. The Netflix series, The Trials of Gabriel Fernandez, amplified these critiques, shining a spotlight on DCFS's lack of accountability and the broader flaws in the child protection system that let such oversights occur. Through interviews and reconstructions, the show illustrated how multiple agencies failed to connect the dots, revealing vulnerabilities that critics said had been ignored for years. We note how this media exposure fueled national discussions, with viewers and advocates demanding answers for why the system didn't step in sooner. Similarly, LA County DCFS faced accusations of disregarding clear indicators, which triggered not only internal investigations but also public condemnations of their case management processes. Reports from the time detailed how these lapses weren't unique, prompting calls for transparency and reform to prevent recurrence in other families. Experts and the public alike hammered on the poor coordination between DCFS, law enforcement, and schools, arguing that this disconnect directly contributed to the failure to act in time. For instance, we pull from analyses showing how reports from educators weren't adequately followed up by social workers or police, creating silos that let critical information slip through. This lack of collaboration became a central theme in
Hey,
critiques,
Cancer.
with child welfare organizations stressing that integrated efforts could have altered the outcome. The establishment of the Blue Ribbon Commission marked a formal response to these shortcomings, tasked with probing DCFS missteps and identifying gaps in
Yep.
staff training and oversight.
They dropped the ball.
Their findings, released in reports, underscored problems like insufficient preparation for handling complex cases, which critics used to argue for immediate overhauls in how workers were supervised on the ground. Prosecutors and courts joined the chorus, lambasting social workers for their negligence, which initially led to criminal charges against them for not fulfilling their duties. We track how this legal scrutiny painted a picture of individual accountability within a flawed structure, with arguments in hearings emphasizing that these workers had the tools but didn't apply them rigorously. Media outlets like the LA Times and Atlantic piled on, highlighting what they called institutional indifference. Within, depth articles calling for systemic changes to address the apathy that allowed oversights to persist. These pieces often feed quotes from insiders and advocates, weaving narratives of how budget cuts and bureaucratic hurdles compounded the issues, urging readers to push for accountability at higher levels. Child advocacy groups zeroed in on the resource shortages and overwhelming caseloads at DCFS, critiquing how these factors bred errors that could have been avoided with better funding and support. We see this in statements from organizations like the Children's Law Center, which argued that understaffing led to rushed
agree.
decisions and missed follow-ups, turning what should have been protective measures into mere paperwork. This perspective shifted some blame to administrative levels, suggesting that frontline failures were symptoms of deeper organizational neglect. Overall, the wave of criticism painted DCFS as emblematic of broader child welfare woes, with calls for audits and policy shifts gaining traction in the wake of the exposure. Shifting to responsibility, the four social workers, Stephanie Rodriguez, Patricia Clement, Kevin Baum, and Gregory Merritt, faced direct accusations of dereliction, though those charges were ultimately dismissed in 2020 after appeals highlighted legal complexities around their roles. Despite the drop, public sentiment held them accountable for not escalating concerns, with details from the case files showing lapses in documentation and visits that critics said should have triggered removals. We examine how their actions, or inactions, became focal points in discussions, representing the human element in systemic breakdowns. DCFS as an entity shouldered the primary blame for these institutional failures, resulting in firings and internal reforms aimed at tightening procedures. Reports from the period detail how the department acknowledged shortcomings,
I know that's right.
implementing new training modules, but advocates argued this came too late, underscoring the need for proactive leadership. Supervisors and DCF's executives bore responsibility for inadequate oversight and training, as outlined in analyses from the Netflix series and journalistic investigations. These sources pointed to a top-down culture where metrics overshadowed thorough casework, with leaders failing to ensure workers had the guidance needed for high-risk situations. We note instances where memos and reviews.
If she was up north, he would have been gone. If he would have been walking outside with no coat, you're in trouble. Let me tell you something. I had a friend that lived in New York, and she said if you in New York and they see you got a hot chocolate, but your child don't got a hot chocolate, they will arrest you because that's child abuse.
Revealed ignored recommendations for better monitoring, placing the onus on management to foster a more vigilant environment. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department shared partial accountability for not thoroughly investigating incoming reports, with critiques highlighting delayed responses or incomplete inquiries that could have prompted earlier interventions. Sheriff's logs and testimonies showed gaps in collaboration, where law enforcement deferred too readily to social services without independent verification. The justice system and LA County government faced blame for insufficient resources and policies that perpetuated these vulnerabilities, leading to patterns seen in similar incidents across the region. Budget allocations and policy frameworks came under scrutiny, with audits revealing underfunding that strained operations and contributed to oversights. We track how county officials responded with pledges for increased funding, but critics maintained that preventive measures should have been in place long before. Lawmakers and government officials at state and federal levels were held responsible for not enacting reforms to child protection laws post-incident, despite the case's high profile. Advocacy campaigns pushed for legislative changes, like enhanced mandatory reporting and inter-agency protocols, arguing that inaction at this level allowed systemic issues to fester. Bills proposed in the aftermath aimed at bolstering oversight, but delays in passage drew further criticism, with groups like the National Association of Social Workers calling for accountability in policy, making to break cycles of neglect. This layered accountability extended to how training deficiencies at DCFS reflected broader governmental oversights, where federal guidelines on child welfare weren't enforced stringently enough locally. We see in commission reports recommendations for cross-training between agencies, placing responsibility on policymakers to mandate such integrations. The media's role in sustaining pressure highlighted how public officials dragged their feet on reforms, with editorials in outlets like the Al-Times urging voters to demand change.
Yep.
Child rights organizations emphasized that ultimate responsibility lay with those in power to allocate resources, arguing that chronic underinvestment directly enabled the lapses. In dissecting these elements, we align with expert views that shared blame across levels, from frontline workers to legislators, created a web of accountability that demanded comprehensive fixes to protect vulnerable kids moving forward. The fallout included personnel changes at DCFS, with several supervisors reassigned amid the backlash, signaling an attempt to address leadership failures. We pull from internal memos, showing how the agency revamped its risk assessment tools. Though skeptics questioned the depth of these shifts without external oversight, Sheriff's Department reviews led to updated protocols for handling welfare checks, acknowledging their partial role in the chain of events. County administrators faced lawsuits and settlements related to the oversights, funneling funds toward improvements, but raising questions about preventive spending. At the state level, lawmakers introduced measures like Gabriel's Law, aimed at tightening reporting requirements, yet implementation hurt.
I did, which is crazy. And I think that's something that needs to be fixed because it make no sense. I gotta do an update. I haven't heard much about the little baby that had a disability, and the parents buried him in the field from the house. And I gotta do an update on that because I haven't seen what happened. The mama lied, talking about a Mexican man punched her in the face, talking about he punched her in the face and gave her a black eye, and he took the baby. But then come to find out, her and the husband, because they stayed near the freeway, they found their baby like that. I think it was last year. Yeah. Hey, Black and Bougie. Crazy.
Hurdles drew ongoing criticism for slow progress. Federal scrutiny through health and human services audits pointed to compliance issues, holding the government accountable for not upholding national standards. This multi-tiered responsibility framework, as dissected in documentaries and articles, underscores how oversights weren't just individual, but embedded in structures needing overhaul from the ground up. The precedent. We're connecting the Gabriel Fernandez case to a couple of similar ones for the channel, zeroing in on how parents or caregivers often turn out to be the main perpetrators who cover up their actions, while agencies like DCFS repeatedly overlook key reports leading to tragic ends. We start with the general ties, seeing how the Gabriel situation mirrors other child mistreatment cases in California, especially in how the parents or guardians are the ones inflicting the harm, and then hiding it through false reports to authorities, forcing siblings to lie about what happened, and blaming everything on accidents or the child's own self-harm. This pattern shows up time and again, with the perpetrators maintaining a facade of normalcy to avoid detection, much like in Gabriel's household where the cover-ups kept the mistreatment going under the radar. At the same time, agencies such as DCFS face heavy criticism for ignoring multiple alerts, which echoes the failures in Gabriel's timeline where teachers and relatives flagged issues, but saw no real follow-through. These common threads highlight a systemic issue in LA County, where DCFS gets slammed for breakdowns in coordination with police and schools, resulting in preventable deaths that could have been stopped to better responses to the warnings. These parallels also underscore the recurring model in LA County, where DCFS comes under fire for institutional lapses, poor teamwork with law enforcement and educational institutions, and ultimately allowing situations to escalate without intervention. In Gabriel's instance, we have educators and family members sending in reports repeatedly, yet the agency didn't act swiftly enough, a scenario that plays out similarly to other cases, pointing to deeper problems like overloaded staff and flawed risk evaluations. This repetition fuels discussions on how such oversights aren't isolated, but part of a larger pattern, with critics arguing that better integration between departments could break the cycle. We note how these cases often lead to public outcry and calls for reform, yet the same issues persist, raising questions about accountability at every level from frontline workers to higher-ups. Moving to the first similar case, the Anthony Avalos situation from 2018 in Lancaster, California, involved a boy who suffered from mistreatment. Anthony's mother, Heather Barron, and her boyfriend, Kareem Leva, were the primary perpetrators, with Barron actively supporting Leva in the harm inflicted on her son, leading to his death. We track how Barron played a direct role in the ongoing mistreatment, not stepping in to stop it, but instead participating.
The situation with these women is, if the men have a problem with the man, and the man got a problem with the kids, they tend to mistreat the children. I never understood that. Because if he want to go somebody else, he's going to go to somebody else. And then they blame the kids. They blame it on the kids. And they mistreat the kids.
Which mirrors the dynamic where parents or guardians become the source of the danger rather than protection. Leva, as the boyfriend living in the home, took a leading hand in the acts. But Barron's involvement made it a joint effort, much like the partnership seen in other households where the biological parent enables or joins in with a partner.
Oh, I see that he was going through hell in that jail. They doing their job. I know that's right. I see he ain't been sleeping, honey. Oh, he look bad. Stress him out.
This setup emphasizes how family members closest to the child often end up as the ones causing the harm, turning the home into an unsafe space without outsiders realizing the extent, until it's too late. In terms of covering up, Barron and Leva went to lengths to hide what was happening, submitting false reports to social services, pressuring Anthony's siblings to lie about the origins of any visible marks, and pretending that Anthony was harming himself or getting into accidents on his own. This deception tactic aligns closely with strategies in comparable cases, where the perpetrators coach family members on what to say during visits or investigations, creating a unified front that misleads authorities. We see records showing how they dismissed concerns by attributing everything to Anthony's behavior, a move that bought them time and delayed any real scrutiny, similar to how false narratives kept interventions at bay in related incidents. The siblings, caught in the middle, faced intimidation to stick to the script, which prolonged the mistreatment and prevented early rescues. On the agency side, DCFS drew sharp criticism in the Anthony Avalos case for receiving at least 13 reports of mistreatment from teachers.
I understand your kids getting on your nerves. Trust me, I do. But I could never sit here and do harm. Like, that will hurt the hell out of me. I cried. I could never do it. No, I'm sorry. No, Going to that extreme, I can't do it. I can't. No, thank you. I don't want nobody mistreating mine. Honey, what? And they can, what? The way I cut up, you talking about fighting? I'll be in jail. 1st degree. No ma'am, no ham, no turkey. When I missed court and had to go sit in there for 48 hours, I was about to go crazy worried about my child. He was in good hands with my mama, but still, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's mine. Hell no. Versus their children. Yeah, it's crazy. I could never.
police, counselors, and relatives between 2013 and 2018, yet failing to remove him from the home. This oversight stemmed from incomplete investigations and a lack of coordination with schools and law enforcement, where alerts from educators about unusual signs weren't.
A man gonna come and go. A woman go come and go. But your kids forever. Like your kids, they gonna, whatever you go through, they gonna go through with you. Those are your kids. And man ain't gonna always be there to go through that with you. A woman ain't gonna always be there either, but your kids will. Yeah, he could have stayed with his uncle. That man was hurt too, y'all. He was hurt when he found out. He cried. I remember watching the documentary. It broke my heart watching his uncle. Man, that broke my heart. He literally cried. He cried. He said that hurted him so bad because he tried so hard to keep him. He sure did. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Pursued aggressively enough, and police involvement didn't lead to immediate protective steps. We pull from investigations showing how DCFS closed cases prematurely despite accumulating evidence, a pattern that critics link to understaffing and procedural flaws, much like the breakdowns that allowed mistreatment to continue unchecked in parallel situations. The agency's response often involved minimal home checks without digging deeper, which let the cover-ups succeed and escalated the risks. Linking the Anthony Avalos case back to Gabriel's, both unfolded in LA County, with the perpetrators being the mother and her boyfriend who inflicted the harm and concealed it by forcing lies from siblings and blaming accidents or self-inflicted issues. In both, DCFS overlooked numerous reports from schools and family, leading to widespread condemnation of the system and significant settlements, $32 million in Anthony's case to address the failures.
Me too.
We observe how these similarities prompted reviews of DCFS practices.
I know, right? Who? Man, please. Let me tell you something. The moment I hit any of let me tell you something. The way my family is, any of that, yeah, we fighting. They don't play that. Any mistreatment, your child ain't coming back over there. What? Yeah, hell no. Take me to jail. I don't give a darn. I'll be at the courthouse in the morning. They don't play that. That mistreatment, hell no.
Yet the repetition suggests ongoing challenges in breaking the cycle of oversight. The settlements and public scrutiny in Anthony's aftermath echoed the calls for change after Gabriel, highlighting how these cases expose the same vulnerabilities in child protection networks. Shifting to the second similar case, the No Quano incident from 2019 in Palmdale, California, centered on a boy who succumbed to severe mistreatment. Noah's father, Jose Cuatro, and mother, Ursula Juarez, were the main culprits, both actively engaging in the harm that led to his death, with no one in the household stepping up to halt it. Juarez, as the mother, participated directly alongside Cuatro, creating a united front in the mistreatment, which parallels scenarios where parents collaborate in creating dangerous environments for their children. Cuatro took on a dominant role in the acts, but Juarez's involvement made it a parental duo responsible, emphasizing how biological parents can become the primary threats when internal dynamics turn toxic. For concealment, Cuatro and Jorid tactics like filing false reports, claiming accidents such as drowning incidents, avoiding medical examinations, and pressuring other children in the home to stay silent about any visible problems. This approach allowed them to deflect suspicion during interactions with outsiders.
It's a movie. It's so heartbreaking. I watched this young girl on Tubi, and the family didn't know that she was being mistreated like that. But the girl, it's so sad, y'all. The girl had the house in Virginia, and she did not know. The mama had caught it because she had been saved by the mama boyfriend. At first, the mama thought she was lying till she took her to the doctor and found out she was pregnant at the same time. And she left that man. She left him. She made him move out. She left him. She didn't tell the little girl, and she hated the little girl. And the girl got older. She kept asking her mama, like, what's up? Why you won't tell me? Like, why you you know, why you treat me like this? The girl didn't love herself so bad. She said, why you never told me? This girl was so promiscuous that she had a boyfriend that was married. She gave it to him because she was born with it. Her mama didn't tell her. Her mama would put her pills and vitamins and make it look like she taking vitamins every day. Her mama couldn't stand her. The boyfriend she was with that was married was controlling. The cousin boyfriend SA'd her and gave it to the cousin and then found out that that's what he had. So she thought mistreatment was love. Then the cousin, she moved on, you know, and found her somebody else because she knew he was cheating or whatever. And the cousin was trying to tell her, you don't have to lay with everybody, right? So, baby, when the cousin found out she had it, the boyfriend, the ex-boyfriend of the cousin, pewed the cousin, unalived himself. She tried to unalive herself, and her mama said in her face, she said, and the boyfriend that is married gave it to the wife. And she said, I wish I never had you, this and that. And she said, I don't understand why you hate me so much. And her grandma, auntie was telling her, like, you need to tell her the truth. What happened? She's getting older. She needs to know. And she went off on her mama. Her mama was like, just give me the pill. Give me the pill. She said, no. Like, she was going to hurt her mama. She told her mama she hated her. So she went home. She was crying and said why her mom didn't tell her. At the end of the movie, it was so sad. She took some pills. She took all her pills because she found out about her pills. She took them and she laid down, and that was it. Now, the movie didn't finish, but it was very sad. And I believe the mama came home because the mama was a nurse and found her like that. The mama would drink because the mama had it. When the mama got SA, she contacted it and had the daughter. And she was telling her mama, she was like, she wouldn't be here. She said, you got to tell her the truth. She said, even if I wanted you to, she said, I understand you upset. But if you keep holding on to that pain, what he did to you, you going to always hate your daughter. She said, you need to tell her the truth. When they realized that she was dating that man, the girl, I think, was 18. Man, that nigga was about 33, 34, sleeping with that girl. Took her V card, forced himself to take it from her. And it's like the pattern, because people were forcing on her, she would force and think that's love. Yeah. Yes, it was sad. It was so sad. That girl was like 17, 18 years old, messing with that grown behind man. And then the mama was trying to step in. She told him, she said, don't you ever come by here for my daughter. He said, ma'am, no disrespect. Baby, she was about to put two between his eyes, one between the eyes. Because he ran out real quick. He told her, ma'am, no disrespect, but your daughter belonged to me. Baby, her sisters had to hold her back. She was really finna send that man the glory. I promise.
To methods used in other cases where perpetrators manipulate narrative.
But in the movie, she tried to drown the girl because she found out that the girl was pregnant. So the girl was pregnant by that old man, and she tried to drown her.
Narratives to portray normalcy. We find details in records where they dodged follow-ups by providing misleading information, which kept authorities from uncovering the truth sooner and prolonged the hidden mistreatment. The siblings, under duress, withheld details, extending the cover-up and mirroring how family pressure silences potential witnesses in these situations. Agency oversights loomed large in Noah's case, with DCFS fielding multiple reports of mistreatment from 2014 to 2019, including calls from relatives, like his Aunt Maggie Hernandez, to hotlines, as well as alerts from schools and doctors, but never removing him from the home. This failure involved poor coordination with police, who didn't push for deeper probes, and a lack of timely medical checks despite accumulating concerns. Investigations later revealed how DCFS mishandled the volume of tips, closing inquiries without comprehensive reviews, a flaw attributed to resource strains and procedural gaps.
It's called The Mercedes Story, A Troubled Soul, and it's on Tubi. The Mercedes Story, A Troubled Soul, and it's on Tubi. That's what it's called. It's so sad. The girl that did it, she had a Mercedes project. It's from the woman that's over the Mercedes project.
Code criticisms, incomparable incidents. We note how relatives' persistent efforts to flag issues went unheeded.
Which is a house in Virginia for young girls, like, or any woman in Baltimore. She's over that project.
Allowing the mistreatment to escalate without intervention. Connecting Noah Coitro's case to Gabriel's. Both took place in Palmdale, with the parents as the perpetrators, who caused the harm, and hid it through false reports and silencing family members. DCFS in both instances ignored repeated alerts, resulting in systemic backlash. A $20 million settlement in 2025 for Noah's family, and pushes for reforms like Gabriel's law to bolster child protections. These links show a troubling local pattern, where parental cover-ups succeed amid agency lapses, prompting ongoing demands for better training and interdepartmental links. In Noah's aftermath, we see similar internal audits at DCFS, acknowledging the same coordination failures that plagued Gabriel's handling, yet the repetition raises alarms about slow progress in fixing these entrenched issues. Expanding on these connections, we observe how in all three cases, Gabriel, Anthony, and Noah, the parental figures, often including the mother and a partner, emerge as the central actors in the mistreatment, not outsiders, which flips the typical expectation of family as a safe haven. This insider threat, combined with deliberate concealment strategies like coached lies and accident claims, allows the situations to fester longer, as seen in the way siblings in each were manipulated to support the false narratives. For Gabriel, the cover-ups involved blaming self-harm, for Anthony, similar self-inflicted excuses, and for Noah, accident fabrications like drowning, all tactics that delayed detection and intervention. These methods aren't random, they exploit the trust authorities place in parental accounts, making it harder for agencies to pierce the veil without aggressive follow-ups. The agency side reveals even more parallels, with DCFS consistently criticized for overlooking reports despite their frequency and sources, from schools spotting behavioral changes to relatives dialing hotlines with direct concerns. In Gabriel's timeline, teacher alerts went unaddressed. In Anthony's, a dozen-plus tips from various parties were dismissed, and in Noah's, years of family and medical flags led nowhere. We track how this pattern points to systemic overload, where high caseloads lead to superficial checks, an issue highlighted in post-case reviews across LA County. The lack of synergy with police, where law enforcement might have enforced removals in schools, which often see daily signs, compounds the problem, as evidenced by the incomplete investigations in each case. These cases also share geographic and institutional overlaps, with Gabriel and Noah both.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It was sad. I was like, oh my God, it was so sad. And her mama prayed every day. She was like, why you let me keep her, God? I wanted to cry because her cousin was the only thing she had close to her baby. I wanted to cry so bad. Yes, unhealed trauma. It really is. Her mama and the grandma and the auntie kept trying to get the mama to get some help.
In Palmdale, and Anthony nearby in Lancaster, all under LA County's jurisdiction, suggesting localized vulnerabilities in DCFS operations. Settlements in Anthony's, $32 million, and Noah's $20 million, reflect the financial toll of these failures, much like the scrutiny following Gabriel. Yet they underscore how monetary fixes don't always translate to immediate changes. Reforms like Gabriel's law, inspired by the first case, aim to tighten reporting and coordination, but their slow rollout post-Noah shows ongoing hurdles. We see in reports how these incidents spurred commission inquiries, like the Blue Ribbon Group after Gabriel, echoing calls for better training after Anthony and Noah. Yet the repetition indicates that while awareness grows, implementation lags. Diving into the parental roles more, in Gabriel's home, the mother and boyfriend duo set the stage. Anthony's mirrored that with mother and boyfriend. Noah's involved both biological parents, showing variations but consistent family betrayal. The concealment in each relied on internal control, siblings coerced in all three, false reports to agencies, avoidance of medical scrutiny, which prolonged the mistreatment and highlighted how perpetrators exploit system gaps. For instance, in Anthony's case, the 13 reports spanned years without removal, paralleling Gabriel's multi-alert timeline and Noah's extended flags from 2014 onward. Agency flagging stands as the common denominator, with DCFS's failures in coordination leading to preventable escalations. We note how in Noah's situation, Aunt Maggie's hotline calls mirrored the relative reports in Gabriel's. Yet both saw in action.
Girl, don't feel bad. I didn't give a damn. Let me tell you something. That old man I called my granddaddy. That old man I called my granddaddy. That's who I told my business to. One thing they'll tell me, don't tell your granddaddy, such and such. Like when I had that situation I told y'all about. Oh, my mom be like, don't tell your granddaddy. Your granddaddy, he not gonna do this. He not gonna do this. So I told my granddaddy. One thing about my granddaddy gonna keep him a pew or his pocket knife. My granddaddy gonna use. My granddaddy is going to use one of the two, and most likely he gonna open that safe, that little thing he kept it under, had his pew in it. He had a very old school one, and he will let you know. You see this? He told any of us got mistreated. He say, I promise you, you going to glory. That's exactly what he said. Yeah, he didn't deserve that at all. He didn't. And yeah, to make his mama proud. And she didn't care for the picture.
Anthony's teacher and counselor tips echoed Gabriel's school alerts, all dismissed due to similar procedural shortcomings. This pattern fuels arguments for mandated cross-checks, where police and schools could force deeper dives. But as seen, such measures weren't in place, allowing cover-ups to thrive. These ties ultimately illustrate a broader crisis in child welfare, where parental mistreatment hides behind deception, and agencies' oversights enable it, calling for sustained scrutiny as we compile for the channel. The settlements and laws emerging from these cases represent steps forward, but the closeness in time and place, Gabriel in 2013, Anthony in 2018, Noah in 2019, signals that changes haven't fully taken root, leaving room for more analysis on preventing future repetitions. The sentence. In the end, we're comparing the sentences handed down in the Gabriel Fernandez case to those in the Emmanuel Haro case for this segment on the channel, highlighting how the severity in Gabriel's situation stands out and why penalties like these are fully justified in delivering justice. In Gabriel's case, Pearl Fernandez received a life sentence without the possibility of parole in June 2018 for first-degree murder with special circumstances of torture, a ruling that underscored her central role in the prolonged mistreatment that ended her son's life. Izaro Agor, her boyfriend, was sentenced to death that same month for the same charge, though execution has been on hold due to California's moratorium on capital punishment since 2019.
How much time she got served?
In the end, we're comparing the sentences handed down in the Gabriel Fernandez case to those in the Emmanuel Haro case for this segment on the channel, highlighting how the severity in Gabriel's situation stands out and why penalties like these are fully justified.
And they need to. I know it's going to take a lot. It's a lot going on, but they still need to do that because I know they better hurry up and do something. And I said this yesterday, since that Roe versus Wade situation, it's been a lot of this. Since they took that away, it's been a more of this, especially with babies.
In delivering justice. In Gabriel's case, Pearl Fernandez received a life sentence without the possibility of parole in June 2018 for first-degree murder with special circumstances of torture, a ruling that underscored her central role in the prolonged mistreatment that ended her son's life. Izaro Agor, her boyfriend, was sentenced to death that same month for the same charge.
If he got that penalty, the unaliving penalty, when he get the unaliving penalty, I think he got that because he's the one that did most of those bruises on him. And it sounds like Pearl did the torturing part, but I feel like she should have got the same darn thing. I'm going to be honest. She should have got the same penalty because she did majority of that by making sure. Wow. Now I remember he put that boy to where he was. Yeah, they should have got the same sentence. I believe it. And she had him do most of it and not touching him. But you still was the mastermind. Pearl was the mastermind. So why she didn't get the same sentence? She really was. If you think about it, she was the mastermind behind it. She should have got the same sentence.
Though execution has been on hold due to California's moratorium on capital punishment since 2019. Over in the Emmanuel Harrow case,
Yeah,
Jake Harrow got 25.
This the case that both of them parents buried that baby. He had special needs. Hey, Mary. They buried that baby. I think this happened last year. They buried that baby. Remember everybody was looking for him, and she said a Hispanic punched her in the eye at the stove, and she fell out. But then when they went to go look at the cameras, that she didn't have her baby, and there was nobody there that stole her car, and they had a game night, and the family was over. That was the last time the family seen that baby. After that, they kept calling her and him, asking where that baby was.
5 years to life on November 3, 2025 for second-degree murder, plus additional time for child mistreatment and filing false reports, pushing his total over 30 years behind bars. Rebecca Harrow, his wife, Cole, in June 2018, for first-degree murder with special circumstances of torture.
Hold on, y'all.
A ruling that penalties in Gabriel's case hit harder overall, with the death penalty for Aguirre and life without parole for Pearl, reflecting a judicial view of the events
case.
as exceptionally grave.
I didn't know they sentenced her already, because the last time I checked, they didn't want nobody to say nothing. They was ready to. Let me tell y'all something. A lot of people on YouTube was reporting this. And social media stopped reporting it, excuse me, y'all, because of the fact was that the police officers and sheriffs then was like, oh, social media messing it up. So the reason why he said that was because they wanted to can their ass. I'm finna do is we're gonna talk about that tomorrow, because it's a lot of crime stuff. I'm just gonna have to put that with what I want to talk about tomorrow. Because my thing is this. We never heard like how they did it. We didn't even know that she got sentenced. That heifer went on TV lying, and we didn't see a black eye or nothing. I knew she was a liar.
Due to the extended period of mistreatment over months. We see this in how the court classified it as first-degree murder with torture enhancements, signaling a deliberate and sustained pattern that demanded the maximum response under California law. By comparison, Emmanuel's case landed as second-degree murder, which carries a lighter baseline, 15 years to life, but got bumped up with add-ons for prior mistreatment and deception, resulting in that 25 to life stretch for Jake. This difference points to prosecutors and judges seeing Gabriel's ordeal as more calculated and prolonged, justifying the escalation to capital punishment territory, while Emmanuel's was framed as reckless, but not quite reaching that premeditated threshold. The severity in Gabriel's situation.
Don't get me started on that. Baby, I did an update about her. Let me tell you something. I'll never forget that day when I sat there watching it that Friday, and the case was long getting it that last day. I'll never forget, I came home and it was on TV. I think Fox, I was living in Florida, it was Fox 13. And I sat down and I was listening. My granddaddy say, they're going to let that white heifer get off. I was like, I don't know. Baby, she got off. She got off. And that pissed everybody. Everybody was pissed off. Hold on, when this was I in school? Hold on, I don't think I was in school. Hold on, let me make sure. I'm going to do an update on this one too. No, I wasn't in school. I was, where was I? 2008. Was I home? I wasn't home when I watched this. I wasn't home when I watched this. I was at a family member, my auntie house. That's who house it was. I don't know why I thought it was my granddad. It was my auntie house. Take that back, my auntie. I was at my auntie house. Yep, it was 2008. We were sitting down watching it, talking. Everybody was having a conversation, and we all was watching it. My auntie said, I bet you she get off. And she got off. She got off. They didn't have enough evidence what they needed. And I didn't know that, but I'm going to talk about it. It wasn't enough. they dropped the ball because it was something they were missing that they didn't do, and that's why she got off. But child, she out here talking, girl, we're gonna talk about it. I had talked about it before, what she wanted to do. She has a TikTok. She got a TikTok. Yeah, and child, honey, when I tell you, she out here, she was talking about she want to do something, have a career in something. Baby, when TikTok found out she's still out here trying to get a career, she went back off on the face of the earth again. Ain't nobody playing with her. Just like with George Zimmerman, he can never get a job after he killed Trayvon Martin. Ain't nobody playing with him. Just because you feel like your daddy was over and your granddaddy was a judge and he got good ties in, you still ain't got no job. Boo boo kitty. Oh well. Stay homeless. Yeah. You okay? Yeah. I forgot to give y'all an update. Cause that heifer pissed me off. She had the nerve to get on social media. You see, George Zimmerman ain't get on here, but now they trying to help him at Milagro because he ain't got no job and he homeless. Oh well. Yeah, she gonna try to do it. No, you know she is. Y'all know that girl love attention.
Really comes through when we weigh the evidence that swayed the court, like sibling testimonies and forensic details, showing a systematic approach to the mistreatment, culminating in brain death. Judges in that trial described it as one of the most egregious child mistreatment cases they'd encountered, which fed into the harsh sentences as a way to acknowledge the depth of...
Okay, we're going to talk about Emmanuel tomorrow. The father pleaded guilty on October 16th, 2025. We're going to talk about that case tomorrow because and the mama didn't plead guilty. So just to let y'all know, he got 25 years to life, Jack Herrero, and put it in the microwave. I'm going to reheat it up. Put it in the microwave because I'm going to put some sweet and sour sauce on it that's in there. Unless you want to put it on my plate. Thank you. My bad. But Jack got a plea deal. I think Jack took the plea deal. And I'm finna tell y'all right now, Jack gonna have to testify against Rebecca Herrero. I believe he's testifying against her. Yeah, he got sentenced in November. He's doing 25 to life in prison. But whenever she has her preliminary hearing and then she take this to trial, because she is taking this to trial, Jack finna tell. We're going to talk about it tomorrow.
The suffering involved.
Jack finna tell.
In Emmanuel's proceedings, the mistreatment led to death as well, but the record didn't emphasize the same drawn-out intensity or variety of methods. So the charge stopped at second degree, reflecting a view of it as gravely wrong but perhaps more impulsive. We note how this distinction affected the outcomes. Gabriel's perpetrators got locked into irrevocable punishments, while Jake's sentence allows for parole consideration after 25 years, though the extras make release unlikely soon. Both cases share long-term incarceration, but Gabriel stands out with the torture special circumstance, pushing it to the death row level. A clear signal from the system that such extended mistreatment crosses into the most heinous category. This isn't just about the labels, it's how the law in California reserves capital or no parole life for acts deemed especially cruel, and Gabriel's fit that bill based on the buildup of reports and eventual revelations. Emmanuel's, while serious with its history of mistreatment, got treated as a high-end manslaughter equivalent, showing how prosecutors calibrate charges to the perceived intent and duration. We pull from court transcripts where judges in Gabriel's hearing stressed the need for sentences that match the atrocity, contrasting with Emmanuel's where the focus was on the immediate events leading to death without the same emphasis on prolonged patterns. Emphasizing Gabriel's gravity further, the case involved layers of deception and family involvement that amplified its horror, with the court noting how the mistreatment wasn't a one-off, but a routine that eroded the child's well-being over time. This led to sentences that effectively removed the offenders from society forever, a fitting response given the irreversible harm. Compared to Emmanuel, where the mistreatment preceded death, but lacked the documented extended timeline in court arguments, Gabriel's drew a starker line resulting in penalties that leave no room for leniency. We see this in how Aguirre's death sentence, even if paused, symbolizes the ultimate condemnation, while Pearl's life term ensures perpetual confinement, both tailored to the case's weight. On the flip side, these sentences are entirely appropriate for incidents of this nature, with Gabriel's capital and life punishments serving as deterrents and affirmations of justice for the victim, aligning with how the U.S. legal system treats severe child mistreatment as top-tier crimes. In Emmanuel's ruling, Jake's 25 to life plus add-ons demonstrates rigor too, but Gabriel's case illustrates why prolonged scenarios warrant the max to uphold fairness and discourage repeats. Both verdicts fit their contexts, with Gabriel exemplifying deserved severity for systematic mistreatment, and Emmanuel reflecting calibrated justice for second degree with aggravating factors. Delving deeper, the Gabriel sentences came after a trial where the prosecution built a narrative of intentional cruelty, leading the judge to impose the harshest options available, a move praised by advocates as setting a standard for accountability in child mistreatment. This contrasts with Emmanuel's plea deal structure, where the second-degree charge allowed for a sentence that's stern but not absolute, showing how evidence of intent influences outcomes. We consider how in Gabriel, the special circumstances clause for torture was pivotal, elevating it beyond standard murder, whereas Emmanuel stayed at a level where parole remains possible, underscoring the perceived difference in malice. The appropriateness shines through in how Gabriel's penalties match the outrage from the details revealed, providing closure through permanent removal, while still respecting legal bounds like the moratorium. For Emmanuel, the over 30-year total for Jake ensures long-term consequences, but Gabriel's case pushes the envelope with death and life without, justified by the extent that shocked the court. These rulings reinforce that when mistreatment escalates to fatal levels with cover-ups, the system responds proportionally, with Gabriel as a benchmark for the most extreme responses. Further, Gabriel's sentencing hearing included victim impact statements that highlighted the lasting trauma, influencing the judge to go full measure, a process that Emmanuel's shared but with less emphasis on duration. We note how both cases involved add-ons for deception, false reports in Emmanuel, cover-ups in Gabriel, but the latter's led to unbreakable terms, fitting the narrative of sustained harm. This comparison shows the law's flexibility in scaling punishment to severity, with Gabriel demanding the pinnacle due to its scope. In Emmanuel, Rebecca's role in concealment drew charges, but her undetermined sentence leaves it open, unlike Pearl's locked-in life, pointing to Gabriel's as more comprehensive in addressing all parties. The sentences in both affirm that mistreatment ending in death merits heavy time, but Gabriel's torture enhancement justifies the apex penalties, ensuring they resonate as deserved retribution. Overall, the Gabriel verdicts stand taller in severity, with life and death reflecting a case viewed as profoundly disturbing, while Emmanuel's 25 to life captures its gravity without reaching that peak. These outcomes are spot on for the crimes, delivering measured justice that honors the victims and signals zero tolerance for such acts. We see in the details how courts weigh factors like duration and intent, making Gabriel's a model for maximum accountability in extended mistreatment, and Emmanuel's a solid response to reckless fatal harm with priors. The sentences not only punish but educate, showing that the system calibrates to the facts, with Gabriel's pushing boundaries to match its horror. Wrapping up this deep dive into the Gabriel Fernandez case, we've covered a lot of ground, but the issues surrounding it are far from resolved and still demand more explanation. We'll keep digging into this story and its implications in the upcoming videos. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.
All right. So we're gonna go into, girl, who interviewed this lady? Child, somebody done interviewed Pearl. Let's get into it. No, they didn't.
Remember?
Oh wow! I know everybody gets amazed to see my beautiful face. Pearl Fernandez, SCCWA, Women's Facility.
I know you, mother. Who interviewed Pearl? Somebody say she looks too happy. I need her to get that beat up daily. Baby, somebody say, why is she alive? They used to tell Pearl up. I think Pearl is somewhere else now because they used to tell her up all the time. Listen, they tired of tearing up Pearl every day. I'm just gonna be honest with you. They tired. They used to do it every day.
All right. All right. So why did you agree to do this interview, and what do you hope people will take away from it?
I would like for people, well, I would like the women to actually get more insight on, you could actually ask for help. You don't have to be believe in the old tradition where what happens in the house stays in the house, that there is help. There is safe houses that you could go to when you are getting abused and getting threatened. And
Pearl, who, Pearl. Who abused you, girl? Pearl. Don't, then you go with the lies already. Child.
that you could actually be independent in yourself.
And did you see the documentary? How did you hear about it? And what are your thoughts about it?
I did not hear the documentary or anything like that. I didn't agree to it. If I would have maybe gotten informed about any documentary or anything coming out, I would have gladly wanted to speak on my behalf, because there's a lot of input that people are saying or that Netflix actually put in that was actually false. And I felt like that the people should know my side, you know, because there's always going to be two sides to the story. And I do want them to know that I would never, I take full responsibility, of course, because I'm the mother, always. But for me, for other people like that don't know, my co-defendant did admit to everything that he was doing to us, you know. So that's why I agreed to, you know, taking this interview, so like that, you know, hopefully it'll open up and give more people more insight about.
Pearl, let me say this. Pearl. My co-defendant admit what he was doing to us. Pearl. I'm not.
What really did go on, you know?
And can you describe your mental and emotional state during the time leading up to Gabriel's death?
At that point, I was going through a lot of stress. Of course, I suffer from PTSD, severe depression. Like, I've been like that since I was young. I was always suicidal. So I was always, you know, going through a lot because of the trauma that I experienced around drugs, gang activity, being molested, being raped, and such forth. So my mental wasn't right. I did try to get help. I did reach out like 3 or 4 times. And that's what I didn't understand. They were bringing me down so much, but they never brought that out to the light either. They just wanted to smudge me up, you know?
And many people struggle to understand how a mother could allow or participate in abuse like this. What would you say to those?
It said failed something. I was like, what?
Yeah, that's only come off quick. Okay. Many people struggle to understand how a mother could allow or participate in abuse like this. What would you say to those people?
They wasn't feeding her at one point. She done lost weight. She looked bad. She looked like she missed a couple of teeth. They beat the brakes off of you, did they? I see a couple of black eyes you're trying to cover with the makeup. They beat the hell out you, didn't they, Pearl? Baby, I think they got tired every day.
How a mother could allow or participate in abuse like this. What would you say to those people?
Okay.
Yeah, that's her.
Now, at that time, I was going through a lot of emotions. I don't think there's any explanation that I can give. But there was a lot of negative put out there that they don't know how I was feeling. They don't know what I was going through. If Netflix would have given me the opportunity to actually speak for myself, I believe maybe I would have, a lot of people have an insight on.
And I know a lot of people will be like, is that really her? They do color. They tell you how they color hair. They got, baby, let me tell you something. They got stuff in there. They have a hair salon in prison. They color their hair. They have certain things they can do in prison. They do the basics. They do, have ways to curl it with rollers. They don't have curling iron. They don't have anything that can use to hurt you. But in prison, they do have things to like do hair and stuff like that in the women's prisons, because that you can paint your nails, you can paint your toes, stuff like that. But that's it. Anything with sharp objects, no, you don't get that. You don't get that privilege. But they do have some prisons. They do.
On the struggles, and I could understand that I take full responsibility. I could have made better decisions. Now that I'm working on myself, I see it now. I did have a drug problem and alcohol problem back then, and I am working on it now as well to make better decisions, up ahead for my life.
Okay, so you say you do take full responsibility of what happened to Gabriel. Do you believe others are equally to blame, or just you?
I feel like I'm supposed to be the blame for everything because of the fact that I could have made better decisions by leaving him. No matter how much he threatened me, no matter how much he did what he did to me, I could have left him.
All right. You took a plea deal to avoid the death sentence. Do you believe your sentence was fair?
They use a brown paper bag.
I didn't get to hear you.
You took a plea deal to avoid the death sentence. Do you believe that your sentence was fair?
I couldn't get to hear nothing you said right there. I heard death.
You took a death sentence to avoid the plea deal. Did you hear what I said?
No, I didn't. Okay, so they were planning on giving me 15 flat for neglect. But since it went worldwide and everybody wanted to put the input, they wanted to make me as an example. Do I feel like it was fair that I got an old sentence? No, I was actually fighting for the death penalty because of my situation mentally. I wasn't there. I wasn't stable, and I never have been. Still now, I do take medication. So I am working on myself now. I feel like I could have got a lesser sentence because there's other people here that do not have an old sentence and they're the actuals. So I think it's unfair, but I feel like I still need to do time to grow.
Okay. Do you believe that you think that you changed since your sentencing? If so, how?
So I believe. Oh, hold on. Say it again. Ask me again.
Do you believe that you changed since your sentencing? If so, how?
I think I believe I changed along the way. I mean, it was kind of hard here because of the fact there was like so much around us. Because being here is like being in the streets. There's nothing changed. There's just female to female. Now there's men here, so there's nothing.
Being in there mean that she got her butt kicked. She got her butt kicked every day. Her first 2-3 years in there, I believe, she got her butt whooped. We gonna play it. They was saying it. They was like, hell yeah, she got her butt whooped. They were tearing her up, tearing that tail up. Her first 5 years, yeah. Yes. What we in? She'll be in there for 10 years. She been there for 10 years. Let's see. Her first, from what I was looking up upon, from 20, since they shipped her up the road. So I say 2018. The last time I looked, it was 2020, 2021. It's been a while since I looked and heard about that. I heard about it in 22 and 23. They were tearing her up. Yes, they've been tearing her up. They've been tearing her tail up in that prison. Yeah, 13 years. They be getting her. They be getting her. I think I don't know how she okay right now, but I think because at first she asked for the judge to put her elsewhere because of the fact was that they were tearing her up every single day. And she said she needed somewhere to be. Like, yeah, it's prison, but can they put her somewhere to where they won't beat her up every day? Yeah.
Change, right? But it's really up to us if we want to grow, because we can't make someone grow. You have to be willing to. So I'm willing to grow now. When I first arrived, I had gotten myself in a relationship with a woman, and she was very abusive, and I thought that was love. And 2 years passed.
She got, she been there. Yeah. She's staying in there for life, never getting out. I think he just said that she went ahead and took the unaliving penalty.
And she finally beat me like really bad, and I just I had to ask myself, like, is this honoring my son? Like I keep on doing the same thing, you know? When am I going to break the chain, you know? So I started working on myself, and I left her. I got a few years without her now.
Y'all heard what she said. She said that girl beat her up really bad. She got beaten up in there really bad. Yeah.
So I've grown a lot. I make better decisions now than I did before. A lot better decisions, because I've taken a lot of groups and I've helped actually a lot of women here.
What are your thoughts on a child's welfare system, on how they failed Gabriel? What are your thoughts, despite multiple reports?
All I heard was, what was my thoughts?
On a child's welfare system?
Thank you.
On how they failed Gabriel, despite multiple reports.
How do I feel that what?
How do you feel on the child's welfare system? How they failed Gabriel?
I feel like I feel like they failed. They failed because I have called like multiple times. There's in my file. I had tried to ask for help before because I had a drug problem, and not only that, I went to like a lot of rehabs, like mental hospitals. So I did ask for help because I knew that I was like the severe depression and experiencing a lot of negative thinking. So I did ask for help, asked for counseling, and they did not come. I remember my son wanted to commit suicide too, and they did not intend to make it as an emergency. So I feel like they failed. They could have helped me better,
Do you think society should ever forgive someone who commits crimes like yours? Why or why not? Did you hear me?
That what?
That little boy would have been 21 years old. If he was still here, he'll be 21. His life is gone. Been gone for the past 13 years. That's crazy. Yeah. That's crazy.
Do you think society should forgive someone who commits crimes like yours? If so, why or why not?
Do I feel like the meds help us?
Do you believe?
I feel like the meds help us. Is that what you're talking about?
No. Do you think that a society should forgive someone who commits crimes like yours? If so, why or why not?
Do I feel like the society fails me on what?
No. Do you believe society should forgive someone who commit crimes like yours?
Hell no.
Why or why not?
I feel like they should give us a fair opportunity. But it depending on how much we change, how much we've shown, such forth. You know, because a lot of people say they change, but I think it takes action, not just words. But I do feel like they should give a second chance. Because I believe they could tell when someone really changed. You know.
Have you apologized to Gabriel's father or other family members?
No.
Or would you want to?
They don't want to talk to him.
Did you?
They loud as hell.
Have you ever apologized to Gabriel's father or family members? Or would you want to?
Have I ever made amends to my baby?
No.
Yes, I have.
No.
I took in a group.
No. No. His father. Have you apologized to Gabriel's father or family members? Or would you want to?
You're breaking up a lot. You're breaking up a lot.
Have you apologized to Gabriel's father or other family members? Or would you want to?
I have not a chance to apologize to him. If he does see this, I do apologize for my mistakes. But I hope one day he does give me the fair opportunity to explain. I feel like he had a role in this too.
Huh?
Because he was doing the same thing. He was very abusive.
Yeah, they did.
Um,
Wait a minute. Not she say he had a role in it too, and he was abusive, but it came out that she was the abuser. So how did that happen? Remember, we just watched it that she was the abuser. And then she say, well, he's in fault of this too. Well, how? And then she goes and say that because he abused her. So I did say that she beat that boy like that because she had resentment towards his father. She didn't do it because she had resentment towards that boy's father. She was still mad at him for leaving her. That is crazy work. So she beat him like that. And she allowed him to get beat bad because she had a problem with his daddy. And her boyfriend.
And I still apologize still. You know, his actions, my actions should have never happened.
What has life been like for you in prison? Especially given the
I have to continue. I do apologize to my kids too, because they didn't have to go through what they went through either. Now that society is just picking on them, asking questions, I feel like that's very unfair that they're doing that. That's neglect alone, I feel, you know, that they don't let my babies move on with their lives, you know, as well as my family.
To the most.
Oh, well, I know everybody gets amazed to see my beautiful face. Pro Fernandez, SCCWA, Women's Facility.
Wow.
Story time, guys. So you guys know about the Gabriel Fernandez case. It was a little boy. His name was Gabriel Fernandez, and he was abused until he had passed away. He was abused by his mom, Pearl.
So this part is this was it was 2022, and this girl came out. She was in prison with Pearl, and she said she remembered that they would go in there, and the women that was in there would beat Pearl. They would beat her up, like literally beat her up.
Fernandez and her boyfriend. Well, he was missing teeth. He had bruises. He was just, poor kid. They gave him kitty litter. They kept him in this little cabinet. It was a messed up story. Here's a picture if you guys don't remember.
Yeah.
So, anyways, when she ended up going to prison, I was actually waiting to go over the wall in Chowchilla prison when she had got there. And when she had got there, I met a girl. Her name was they called her Morena. She was from White Fence, and her name was Angel Medina. Well, she was in there, and she kept talking about this baby case coming. I didn't know nothing about it. I was just hearing stories about it. I had been on the streets for a long time, so I really didn't know what was going on until people were telling me about it. Well, anyways, she was actually, people were talking about getting this girl when she got there. Well, when she did get to Chowchilla, Morena had took it into her own hands, her and a few other girls, and they were like, we're going to get her. They had set up to get her. So Morena had told me, she was like, hey, dog, she was like, I'm going to get this bitch because there's females here that have kids, have families, and I don't want them to catch more time. She was like, me, I'm out there in the streets. I'm fucking up. I don't really have nothing to lose. You know what I mean? She was like, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to run that. So this happened around 2018. So I don't know if anybody's ever been to the female prison, Chowchilla. Well, we go to the chow hall, like different programs. So she was waiting to catch her slip, and she had already planned out what she was going to do to this girl. She knew the consequences. She already knew how it was going to go down. It was her and a few other girls, I believe, from LA as well. So anyway, so they ended up getting her in the chow hall. They beat the fuck out of her. They sliced her up with a lid from a tuna can, and everybody like started throwing. We get hot water in there, like for our coffee. They started throwing hot water on her, or whatever, and they ended up getting her. Well, anyways, this is Morena, a picture of Morena, the one who. So these girls, they end up getting her, whooping her ass, and fucking her up. They ended up PCing her up, and everybody's gone. They do an investigation. They shut down the prison on that side. I don't know about over the wall. But they shut down the prison, and they questioned everybody one by one to see if they knew what had happened, whatnot. They did this little investigation, and Morena's gone. I guess she went to the hole. I'm not sure. I end up going to CIW to do my time, and when I'm on CIW, I end up getting a job. I'm working yard crew, and I go to work early in the morning, right? And it's been about 6 months since the incident happened in Chowchilla. And as I'm walking, who do I see? Morena, barely getting there. Story time, guys. So you guys know about the Gabriel Fernandez case. It was a little boy.
They told her up.
Story time, guys. So you guys know about the Gabriel Fernandez case.
No.
It was a little boy. His name was Gabriel Fernandez, and he was.
So the girl Morena that fought Pearl, she passed away of August in 2022. So she passed away. Someone just said that she passed away. And somebody said July, somebody said August, but they say she passed away. And yeah, she passed away. So it's sad, y'all.
Abused until he had passed away.
Yeah.
He was abused by his mom, Pearl Fernandez, and her boyfriend. Well, he was missing teeth. He had bruises. He was just, poor kid. They gave him kitty litter. They kept him in this little cabinet. It was a messed up story. Here's a picture if you guys don't remember.
Let me see. They say they found her. Let me see.
Story time, guys. So you guys know about the Gabriel Fernandez case. It was.
I don't think she got a part two. But yeah.
And so they didn't really want nobody to touch her, but it was just like a thing that had to happen.
Yeah, like, bro, what do you mean? I don't give like this. So nobody really did nothing to the girl. She just was just there.
I think on AR, when she got to AR, yeah, because we had already heard like, hey, she's coming. We're like, oh. And then they had, did their thing on AR, and then she came over the wall, and everything was like just.
She was just there walking by herself.
Yeah, like living in people's room comfortably and shit.
You're
like
kidding.
Eating, sleeping.
So this is another one that was in there with Pearl. And she also said that Gabriel uncle did pass. So yeah, Mm-hmm. She was in there as well, the same prison, same place.
Showering, having fun, laughing, getting ready, putting makeup. Like, you just killed your son. Like, you just killed your son. Your son doesn't get to eat no more. He doesn't get to play no more. He doesn't get to laugh no more because you took his life and you're over here having fun. Like,
Really?
yeah. And so they didn't really want nobody to touch her, but it was just like a thing that had to happen.
Yeah, like, bro, what do you mean? I don't give
Let me see if I can hear about people in there with her.
So basically, how long had you been there before Pearl rolled up?
I would say it's on AR, which is reception for those who don't know. Probably like 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Okay, and straight up, what was her stilo like, man? What was her get down? You know, shit, rolling up with something like that. I've heard a few people comment saying that she was like carrying the Bible around, crying all the time, or something like that. But then I've heard other stories. So, what was her stilo, man?
You know what? When she went in there, like I'm saying, for her charges and everything, you know, her charges were, she never showed any remorse. You know, she never looked. She was like a proud criminal. She walked with her head high. Blew her coverage a little that she started stealing. She started stealing from her Sally's.
Wow.
Was in the day room. Everybody's in the day room, and then what happened? So then it was like around the same time. So then she gets questioned about her paperwork because what it is there. Right, and you know, in prison on AR, you're watching an hour of TV. You're not, you know, you don't get to watch Netflix. You know, honestly, I didn't even know about the case, you know. But what happened is people from her county started saying that's her. You know, she killed her baby. She blah blah blah. So at the same time at the day room, you know, people started pointing her out. So then when the homegirl asked her for her paperwork, she goes, "Oh, I'm here on child endangerment charges, but." My boyfriend did it. And then the homegirl's like, all right, well, I need your paperwork. You know, you're already stealing. You're already doing too much. You know, and I'm not gonna speak to this shit. You know.
So hold on. So it kind of my Wi-Fi kind of cut out a little bit earlier, but you were saying that basically what kind of blew her covers or put her on blast and drew attention to herself was that she started stealing.
Yeah, that was that was like the first red flag. And then prison.
Before that though, she was kind of under the radar. No one was really.
Yeah, you know, I can't say I never seen her with a Bible or say, you know, because I wasn't in her unit. But you know, it was nothing like the way she is on Netflix, trying to look up or trying to, you know, fucking kick it in the yard. You know, I never ran into the bitch in the yard. You know, so she was about nothing. She wasn't kicking it. You know.
Okay, so my bad. Sorry to cut you off. Let's go ahead and get to the juicy part. Let's go. Where were you going? Let's pick up where you left off.
Okay, so then, so at the time, Sally was doing her paperwork. She's mad. She's stealing my noodles. Blah blah blah. Boo doo boo. And then, you know, so that right there, you know, you know, she's gonna get dealt with, you know, for stealing. Then, yes, you know, off top, you know, that shit is not gonna be fucking tolerated. And so then that happens, and then what happened next? And then the CEO, that's when at the time, so when they asked her, we need your actual paperwork, so she's going to get it, but her people in her cell already had her paperwork. So then they lock it down. So at this point.
Listen, just to let y'all know, now I haven't heard nothing about him. He on death row, and I'm not finna lie. There is no telling what is going on with him as well. But every time they get in there, it's over with. I'm finna end it here. I'll be back tomorrow with Emmanuel about his situation. I do want to talk about the mom that put her daughter in a bag. I want to talk about that, so I'm going to try to gear that up for Tuesday. I'm going to end this live. I'll be back, you know what, by 4:15. And we're going to do a recap. I might push, I think I'm going to come back with something else at 5. We're going to talk about Old Girl, but tomorrow we'll just talk about all reality TV tomorrow. I'm going to change my thumbnail and stuff as well. And we're going to talk about that. So we're going to talk about Married to Medicine and all of them together for one last time. I want to do the reunion by itself. It's been a long day. I'm tired. But one last week of talking about them together. And starting this Friday, Friday and Saturday, I'm going to separate them up correctly so we can get ready to have Real Housewives of Atlanta by themselves, so we can get ready for April 5th. We have 2 weeks until we have our premiere party for Real Housewives of Atlanta. If you want to get your peach tea, some peach cake, peach cookies, peaches, whatever, peach wings, honey, we gonna bring it in right for the girls. I want to thank you guys for watching. I'll be back. Somebody sent me a throwback that we gonna discuss. I'm gonna do it at 5 o'clock. We gotta talk about that 5 or 6 o'clock. All right. I want to thank you guys I might come back at 4:30, 4:15. Let me get my thumbnail together. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye.